I'm Hubert Boorder. I've been a stunt in the stunt industry for, I always cap it off at about 25 years. I started in the non-union world with a stunt team from my martial art club. It was a Filipino martial arts club. To be more clear, it's like Kali, which is the common name. And one of the guys in our club was connected to the Hong Kong action scene and got into the scene in Toronto, and then just needed a team of guys. And we were just kind of pushed in that direction. So it just kind of went down that way. Before that, I was just going to be a martial art guy. Yeah. Or maybe martial art guy, medical guy, because I really love medical stuff. I almost research medical stuff more than I do anything related to film sometimes. It's such a strange contradictory. I love medical stuff. Yeah.
I don't think it's contradictory.
Well, it's just, it's well, not contradictory, but it's such a different direction. It's a different world, you know. It's like medical stuff, like how to be stronger, how to be this, how to eat better, all these kinds of things. But then it kind of correlates with being a stuntman in the sense of being a professional athlete, which is kind of my view and how I approach my job in this way.
Yeah, I guess a healthy body creates healthy
everything.
No, everything. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Healthy body, healthy mind, healthy outlook, healthy a lot of things. It really gives you positive perspective, and yeah. And that's kind of my approach to pretty much everything. I can't say I'm perfect. Actually, I just will start with, I'm not perfect. I'm probably below perfect. I know. We might as well end this interview right now.
All right.
Like, okay, that's been great, Hubert. Bye. So the way my brain works at times is, you know, it goes blank for a very long time. And then an idea pops up, and I don't know why. I might listen to a song. I get inspired by varieties of different music, usually music that's not common. It's just something about it. And then it just sparks an idea. And then just before COVID, a friend of mine and myself, we were, Elon Rosenberg, we were, I was looking for just a bunch of guys that I wanted to kind of mentor or train to kind of just see where it goes. And it's something that I was brought on to by Chad Stahelski, one of the coordinators of 300 and one of the creators of John Wick and many other cool things. And I had a conversation with him just before this whole team began, which I was very surprised he even answered my phone call, because I'm like, Chad, you're actually answering my phone. He goes, why wouldn't I? And I'm like, I don't know, because you're big time. And so he answers my call, and just told him about what I was thinking and what I had been trying to do years after 300, because he gave us this great advice and stuff. And it was just a challenge. A lot of people were just going in their own direction. So harnessing the passion and the people to create a vision of whatever that is, a unified group that had common goals and passions towards creating film, not just being stunt people, is something I've always loved. Like, I started in martial arts. I've always been part of teams, and I love team collaboration. I love team energy, you know, especially when we're all on the same page, because you just accomplish so much. And so I was looking for that. And then he goes, well, just find people that aren't the ones you know. And somehow it just, and I thought, well, who am I going to find? And it just lined up that Elon Rosenberg would always hold this stunt course. And he had a bunch of just very sporadic people that would join it. And there was kind of like a clique there that always hung out. And I'm like, wow, it's cool. They were very diverse, you know, culturally, ethnically, sizes and stuff. And I'm like, and they were very passionate. Were they amazing? Not really. I wasn't looking for amazing, talented people. I actually didn't want talent. I didn't want talented people. And this isn't to say they weren't talented. This is just, I wasn't looking for the A team. You know, with the A team, I don't have to work hard, you know, because the A team will just come up with this stuff regardless. I go, here's the plan. Perfect. I could leave for the day, come back, and the A team will probably have it all finished. And so I wanted guys that were just passionate, with not great qualities and not great skill sets or developed skill sets yet, which was perfect. Like, one of the guys in the group was James Veit, and I'm proud of this dude and a few others. This kid was over 340 pounds when he started. He has never been an athlete, and he'll be the first to tell you, he ate crappy food. He sat in his dad's basement in the dark playing video games, eating crappy food, never exercising. And I don't know how he got inspired by going to this stunt group, but you'd think, like, at that weight, never doing anything like this before, why would that be the first thing you'd want to do? So somehow he got inspired, and that kid weighs now about 215 pounds. And he's just driven and dedicated. And these are the kind of people that were all part of that group. Not all like James, but just had that drive and passion. And so that is what I was really looking for. And the challenge was Chad Stahelski. There's a lot of great things that stuck with me when we spoke way back, like almost 20 years ago now. A good coordinator, coach, mentor, whatever, what proves that you're good is when you take bad people and make them good, and that comes down to that A-team thing. You have the A-team, you don't have to make them good. They're already the A-team. You got an Olympic crew of people, you don't have to teach them how to be Olympic crew of people. They're already at that Olympic mindset, Olympic physicality, everything. But I wanted to see if I could do that with mediocres or C people, C level, let's say, B to C. And that was a cool challenge, because then it allowed me to also learn a lot of things, how to approach people, how do you get them into that mindset? How do you keep them focused? How do you keep them concentrating? How do you keep them driven, especially when they don't come from that background? And it was their passion to succeed, which kept them focused. And like, I can't tell you they all stayed, but out of the 25 that put their hand up and said, I want to be part of that idea, we slowly trickled down to around when one of the chamber was first thought of or created, almost 2 years ago, last year. I think it was last year was when we actually shot it. And we had, I'm trying to think of how many of the regular team that we had from the beginning. We had maybe about 5 left. And then we had some new people that showed up. So they were now part of the group to help with that film, right? So we had probably like 5 originals left out of the 25 that first started, and those are the ones that have succeeded. Like, everyone in that project is now full stunt people. They're part of the Toronto Stunt Union, the ACTRA stunt community, which happened for them in less than a year to 2 years, which, isn't easy. They've learned a lot. My goal is not to train stunt people, it's to train filmmakers, people that understand film, so that if they're on a set with somebody else, they can think of the solution before they're asked, so that it makes them more valuable. And that was kind of my approach. I think I veered way off the topic.
No.
Okay, keep me on track, because I do that sometimes.
Yeah, it's fascinating, man. Like, I think there's a beauty in rawness that comes out, especially on screen, because when it's raw, it has some type of like genuine feeling to it. Mm-hmm. But if everything, and if you've seen, it's a lot, happens a lot in Western filmmaking, actually, that you see that pitch perfect, extremely precise, almost like a dance choreography, and it's like you can see the choreography, hence you don't believe it. There's little rawness, there's little like it's not perfect. Fighting is not perfect, filmmaking is not perfect, and I can definitely relate to what you're saying. And you said something very like, people who get into the ACTRA, get into stunts, and you mentioned that you basically somehow found yourself doing stunts, and you were a martial arts guy, and then was like, were you aiming at stunts, or you didn't even had that in your mind?
hold that question, because I want to just finish your first question, which was, how did I come about One in the Chamber?
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I just reminded myself. I can't believe I did, because usually I forget. It just came to. I thought, like, I looked at this as like a black belt test. I needed to get them mentally over certain physical things and mental obstacles. And I thought the best way to do that would be to kind of create this project that could allow them to come up with ideas for their own stunts that they wanted to show, maybe stuff they could put on a demo reel that they could then later present to other stunt coordinators to get work, stuff that I wanted them to physically do. And just really push themselves mentally as well as physically, because this was really the first time any of them had been on a set that, even though it was low budget, one camera, a few lights, and one DOP, it was really the first time that they had this kind of real set kind of experience. And I made them also the crew, most of the crew, because I wanted them to work together to help fulfill this vision, this dream, or whatever, so that they understand the hustle that it takes. So when they're on set, they understand the hard work that goes into the shot. Even though they won't be the crew, they'll be watching the crew. They'll understand what it takes. And I can't tell you that it was easy, because it was a long drive.
Mm-hmm.
It was many mental things for them to just kind of be there, and those long days that we had to work to kind of get this thing done under such a short period of time. And so it's accomplished many goals. It was to give me some directing footage. It was to get these guys into the union. It was to get them over mental obstacles and hurdles that maybe they thought they couldn't do a lot of things. One of the main reasons I had Hannah Oliveros be the lead and wear what she wore was because it's not common that you see that. Usually most people wear things that you can hide pads under. And I didn't want her to wear pads, because I knew physically, if she had the right training, the right mindset, she could actually fulfill all those goals, which she did incredibly well. Like, they all just like banged it out of the park. Yeah. And I wasn't going for perfection. I just wanted to get the project done. That was also a goal for me, was just to get it done, because sometimes the hardest thing in anything we do in this industry is getting it, think of the idea, think of the idea, and then executing it, and then having a finished product. Even if it's only like a couple of minutes, sometimes it's like, it takes forever organizing people, getting it together, folding all these pieces together. And that was also, I was trying to come at it from a producer standpoint. How do we do this? How do we get it all together? So it was like so many things squished into this one idea. And I definitely didn't want it to be perfect. I wasn't looking for perfection. I remember listening to Clint Eastwood talk about his projects. And Clint Eastwood, as we all know, he's been around a long time. Is he the best actor? He's become better for sure. But I don't look at Clint Eastwood for acting. I look at him for just being cool and awesome from all the cowboy movies that I love watching him in. And his producing and his directing is amazing. Like, the stuff he does, it's not necessarily high action, but it's just the storytelling and all this kind of stuff that I really like. It's his cool shots, because he's actually very cinematic with his ideas, probably from his Sergio Leone days, just capturing and understanding that kind of stuff, which I thought was really cool. And so I just like him, and I think he's cool in his style. And so I remember him being interviewed, and I forget the name of the interviewer, but he's been around a long time. He's kind of heavy, wears glasses, and he sits in front of like an audience. It's called the Actor Studio or something, I think. And
Lipton, James Lipton.
Yeah. And he asks really out of the way questions sometimes, and he has everybody on his stage, right? So he had Clint Eastwood there, and Clint Eastwood, I don't know how old he is, but at that time, but he's pretty old. And he said, "What do you think about when your movie doesn't do well and people don't like it?" He's like, "Well, or you don't get it the way you want." And he's like, "Well, I just think I'll just do it better next time." I thought, what a simple answer, no ego, no worry. If they don't like it, doesn't succeed, then I'll just do better next time. And one of the huge pressures we put on ourselves in this industry, especially probably as filmmakers, is it's got to be perfect the first time so that we get the job or the next, or get noticed and all these kinds of things. And I had to let that go because I wasn't working with the best stunt people. I was working with good stunt people, passionate stunt people, but they still weren't there yet. But I got to give them more credit. Like, they just did a great job. You know, they took direction, they understood what needed to be done, and they did it. But they're still new. So there's a lot of gaps still that they don't necessarily understand. And I just had to accept the fact that that's what it is. And the important thing was to get it done and get all those other things banged out, and then we will do it better the next time, right? And and I was very happy with the way it came out. Yeah.
It was like, it was definitely a stand-up because it was very kinetic. It started hard. Like, there's an Israeli movie. You definitely haven't watched it because it's in Hebrew, but it says you start. Like, how do you win a swimming contest? And the guy says, you start the hardest you can, and then you increase the pace. So it felt like, and going back to what you said about Hannah and how she managed, it was like one of the most mentioned things was like, how did you do it without pads? And like, there are a lot of, I mean, there are many cinematic tools to use to hide certain things, but you can hide up to a certain point. So it was super impressive, and yeah, you just do it better next time, whatever didn't work in this one. And I personally cannot wait to see, because you're planning to do a second and third part. I am aware of that.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to see it. But I do want to go back to what I asked you before. So I listen to a lot of people in the stunt industry, and somehow those who work the most end up being stunts by, some certain coincidences, like putting them together, and they were in martial arts in different places, or they were aiming at something completely different, and suddenly they're drawn into something, and it just becomes their thing, and which is, very, very common. That's probably what happened with me. And I was wondering, like, how did you? I'm not in stunts, by the way. How did you get into stunts, and how hard was it, and what was the main thing to maintain mentally? Like, consistency is key, I know, but what was the hardest thing? What was the biggest challenge, and how did you get over it? At least in the beginning of your way in stunts.
Well, I fell into stunts. Just kidding. That's a stunt joke.
I'll tell you about my next one.
I didn't even know, honestly, about this industry. It wasn't a direction I ever thought of. Like I said, I had been a forever martial art guy since the age of 13. And I started late in martial arts. I've always loved martial arts. My first introduction to really what martial arts was, I'm going to say around 7 years old, when I first saw my first Bruce Lee movie, who I didn't even know was Bruce Lee, but when I flashed back, oh, that was Bruce Lee. And I was like, holy cow, that was like epic. And then after that, it just became, okay, me and my brother and my friends, we all watched Bruce Lee movies. And at that time, I think it was Friday and Saturday, they had Kung Fu movies that would come on around 1 o'clock or like late at night on a Friday. And we'd all either huddle at somebody's house and watch these Kung Fu movies. And then the next day when we went outside, what do you think we were doing? Ha, 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 ha. We're like doing these Kung Fu fights that we would just do. And so I've kind of just always loved that. And I think the thing that captures me the most is just the movement. It's so unorthodox, and it's incredible, and it's diverse, and it's, how do they think of these ideas, And so I just always, that's kind of was my first thought of just martial arts, period. And then and then my mom just kind of slowly got me into it and took me out of it. And then my real commitment to martial arts was when I was around 13 in grade 9. And then I just stuck it out since then. And then I did different martial arts. I did Hapkido and karate, which I started and taught for a long time. And then I did, my next martial art was Filipino martial arts, which is called Kali Arnis or Eskrima, and competed in '96 and became like a world stick fighting champion at that time. And my focus was still just martial arts, right? It was to open up a school, you know, and or a chain of schools or something. And I studied shiatsu therapy because I also wanted to be a healer, because I kept thinking the whole picture, you know, beat people up and also be able to heal. And then after that, it was like either become a chiropractor or go down the doctor path. I think that's like what I was saying at the beginning, is why I like medical stuff, because I just find it interesting how human beings could heal and achieve such great things, you know, with their bodies. And so that's kind of where my focus was. And then at our niece school, it just happened that, you know, our instructor pushed us onto our senior, he said, use these guys, you know, for your non-union projects, you know, help them or whatever. Because we were poor martial art people. Like all martial art people are pretty much poor, because all we do is train and eat and eat, train and eat, train and eat. And so that was kind of like my first thing. I remember I worked at the Eaton Center doing security. And one of my earliest things was sitting in the field on this little wooden chair, because that was our holding area, waiting to get beaten up by like 5 girls with stilettos. And Roddy Piper was the lead in that project. I forget what it was called now. And I forget, C. Thomas Howell was another character in that project. I forget what it was called. But that was like one of my first experiences with getting on. I was like, yeah, and I think I made like, I don't know, $50 for the day. I was so excited. I worked all night. I'm just sitting there on a chair that's like, you know, not even as nice as this chair. It was like a little wooden chair, and we're just there waiting to get beat up. And yeah, it just kind of progressed from there. And I was doing little jobs here and there as I was training martial arts, and then it just became more of a thing. Our senior got bigger shows and just kept using the same people as part of his core team. And then we were a stunt team, and that stunt team was called Fast Fight Action Stunt Team, and based out of Toronto. And most of those guys that I was part of in that team are now all fairly good coordinators in Canada, stunt coordinators, right? They're all doing fairly good shows, big shows here. And that's kind of just, and then after that, it was just, that's what I've been doing since basically 2000, to keep it simple, you know. That's all I've been doing. I've been very lucky that that's all I've been doing. Yeah, that was my intro to this industry. And then after that, it just, right off the get-go, because our senior had this Hong Kong connection with, do you remember the movie Enter the Dragon, when Bruce Lee is teaching that little kid how to kick? Mm-hmm. So he knows that kid. And we got to, his name was Stephen Dongwai, and that's right. Yeah. So we got to work with a lot of really great people from that scene. Wow. And we got to learn a lot, because their level of thinking and performance and everything they did was just a different level. Mm-hmm. And the Hong Kong way was that, and at least my interpretation was, everybody on a Hong Kong set knows how to film, how to edit, how to create choreography, how to this, how to that, how to this, how to that. They may not be doing that. They may not be the film guy. They may not be the editor or the director, but they could do it. You know, are they the best? Maybe they're not all the best, but they understand, right? So they work as a unit, and they work together. Let's all fix the light. Let's all fix the ladder. Let's all go here. Let's, you know, like it's a unit. Whereas in North America, we're divided in departments, so things move a lot slower. And I know, sorry, no,
it's don't apologize. It's fascinating, okay, man.
So I don't know. I was interested in what I guess was on set. I don't know what sparked the interest, but I was playing with a camera when me and my martial art brother Max, basically stunt brother Max White. he was also one of the coordinators on the Kingsmans, and he doubled for Hellboy in the second one. And him and I have been training forever, literally since I was 13. I've known him since I was 13, and I just started filming our stuff with this tiny little silver camera. I don't even know what it was called at that time, with a 1-inch monitor. And I had my very first computer, which I knew nothing about, which was the first iMacs that came out, and it was orange. And it had the 256 megabytes, which I was like, man, this is powerful. You know, this is so fast. You know, and my first editing was on iMovie. And it was all self-taught. Obviously there was no YouTube, there was no online tutorials. And I read most of the stuff in books because I bumped up from iMovie to Final Cut Pro 7 at that time and just needed to figure it out. And I watched how directors on set would kind of shoot things. And I can't say I was the best at it. I really came up with a lot of my own angles. I was like, oh, this looks kind of cool. This looks kind of cool. I did what I thought looked cool, not necessarily what was proper. You know, I didn't follow axis and rules, and I had no idea what this meant. I just thought, oh, this looks cool. I'll shoot it like this, even though I'm seeing the ceiling, which we're not supposed to see. And I just slowly learned stuff over the years when I'd have DOPs or directors who wanted to help me or give me advice, tell me what I should and shouldn't do. And yeah, I just started shooting previs and editing them on iMovie. And I remember one director on a show we did way back called Mutant X. It was like one of the first superhero shows probably in Canada. It was an unknown show. I
remember that show. We had it in Israel.
Oh, okay, yeah. It wasn't related to anything related to the superhero world. No. And I was told by our senior that the director wanted to use my previs to shoot his action sequence. So he used what I created to shoot his. I was like, holy cow, really? It's like my first. I'm like, wow. I'm like, I must have done something right. And so I just kind of kept doing that. I just always found it interesting to try and create that thing, you know. And it's always evolving. I still don't even think I'm fully there because my ideas change all the time. And I have a style, but I don't want to be locked into a style. You know, I want to be able to move.
The style of no style, right?
Yeah, I want to be like that because I don't necessarily want to get stuck with this is how Hubert always films things, you know. And
no, I get what you're saying.
But I do want an understanding of maybe like let's say in martial arts, a foundation. So if I have foundation, but now I can go learn 10 different martial arts and still be able to use these different martial arts. But it all comes from my basic foundation, right? And so at any time I can use a different style of martial art, let's say, but it all comes from the same foundation. But it'll never look like, okay, he only ever does karate, you know, he only ever does judo. That's his judo style. That's what he does, you know. So I don't want to get locked into things. I want to shoot things that I think look interesting.
Do you find that did you find that's an issue because you've seen many people get like boxed into certain, not necessarily just the stunt people, like even as directors get boxed in a certain style? Sometimes it's great. Like I don't know, many people might disagree with me on certain level, but Michael Bay, for example, has a very specific style. Both cinematography, editing, his approach to things. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but do you think that comes from a certain thing that you've seen throughout your career, or is it something that you just want to not to be boxed in? Is it something personal, or just?
I think it's just how I've always been. I'm not a conformist.
Well, you're a stunt person,
it's weird. I was talking to my martial art brother, Max, and he's very technical. Everything is about technique, and I'm always about technique. But he can tell you the history of why this has to be like this and not like this and not like this. Like, he's technical, right? Whereas me, I'm like, okay, tell me the technique. Okay, got it. And then boom, I just do it. right? I don't need to understand all the intricacies of when I'm teaching necessarily somebody. I'm all about, let's rep the movement out and your body will figure it out and I'll tweak you along the way.
Yeah.
Right? So that you create your style, right? Eventually, instead of, Aaron, you have to always punch with your hand like this. But maybe for your mechanics, your hand punches like this, but it's still effective and it works.
Yeah.
You figured out a way to make it work. So, and if I, flash back to Bruce Lee, who was always like amazing, like just, that was the first guy I got inspired by, and I had no idea who he was. You think about Yoda and all these different people when they come up with these amazing sayings and who thought of these things. Be like water, formless, all these kinds of things. And from my different martial arts that I've done, that's how I try to be just naturally. I don't try to get stuck into a style, but I have a foundation. I have roots, a base to come from. And it's forever growing. I think sometimes it bites me in the ass because then I forget what the heck I knew before. So then I'm almost starting from scratch sometimes, which then the process can be slow because then I have to figure out what it is that I'm not doing so that I can get my idea out, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? So like, let's say I'm a director that always shoots a certain way. That means I already know how I'm always going to shoot everything, right? Because I always shoot a certain way. So I read my script. Okay, cool. I know exactly how I'm always going to shoot my angles, all the shots I need to cover, more or less, right? You always know what you're going to cover. I see it all the time, especially when I work in TV and things like that. They just know I'm going to always cover these angles all the time. Yeah, I'm going to cover this, and it's always how they get through their episode or their show. And it becomes their formula, right?
Yeah.
They don't necessarily stray from that too much. So they know when they show up to work, this is how it's getting done. Me, mine can get blown out the window and then I show up and I'm like, okay, let's just do this. It's not like I walk in all the time with a plan. It just shows up on the day a lot of times. And then sometimes there are times I walk in with a plan.
Well, I heard many people talk about the stunt, specifically in the stunts, that you have to be able to plan and then to be able to improvise on the spot, because so many things come up that aren't expected, but budget-wise, schedule-wise, ability-wise, when somebody's trying to make a 350-pound person do a double tsukahara, that's not possible. So how about you fit the movement to the person instead of fit the person to the movement? So those things always come up, and I understand what you're saying, that you have to be able to both recognize the formula and stray away from it if it's necessary. And I think that's one of the, there are two reasons why I started Crank. One of them because I didn't really think there was proper appreciation for action and the people who make it, both in front and behind the camera. And the second one is that I'm really curious to see why there aren't as well-made action films these days in comparison to old days, and why director like John McTiernan, for example, who created a few of the best films that do not come up anymore. And I do know that there are now the Stanowski is doing it, and is the other director who did the John Wick with him. I forgot his name.
David Leitch.
Yeah, and I know that there's a giant and the guy who made the Extraction. So they all come from the stunt.
Sam Hargrave.
Yeah, so they all come from the stunt world and they bring it to the screen. But I'm just curious why still in many other projects the approach to action is so almost cheap. It's like, oh, you'll just do it and do something like that. And I would love to hear from somebody that was on so many sets, like you've been on sets since 2001.
Early 90s.
Early 90s.
Mid 90s. Mid 90s.
Mid 90s. So it's so I would like to know how you see that kind of thing, how you see the approach to action. Has it changed?
Well, I think in the beginning, I didn't think about it the way I think about it now. In the beginning, it was always about martial arts. And I remember the old school coordinators not really digging martial arts because their vibe was, before me, it was more cowboy style fighting, barroom brawly type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, like, I do love barroom brawls because, you know, you watch a lot of those old 70s, 80s, before the 90s, really, it was a lot of the fighting was kind of barroom brawl style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the
Yeah.
A-team and all these guys were like, boom, big throw or whatever that was, right? And so I love that kind of stuff. And I think, again, coming back to, I don't like to conform to one thing. I like mixing up the styles,
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, suiting that story, that moment, or whatever that is, the character. And so I think, and I was just watching something actually this morning, amazing performers. And I won't say what it is, but amazing performers, shot really well, like incredibly well. And again, I'm not perfect, and it's something that I'm always trying to work towards, to kind of create this. It's a fine line between realism, meaning you can't kill your performers, because in a realistic action, in a realistic fight, let's say, because most action is based off of fighting, right? It's all fighting. It's like you got guns, you got weapons, you got falling from things, you know, a guy got kicked off the building. Like, we can't really do this because they'll die.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying your best to get that out of your performers. And it's tough because you got to remember, people don't, even though we're stunt people, we don't want to get hurt, right? So there's a psychological thing, there's a fear element in there. As badass as a huge percentage of these guys are, you look at their down and it's like, oh, dude. But at the same time, they still don't necessarily want to be repeating that crazy wreck they just did another 15, 20 times, right? For this angle, that angle, this angle, that angle, and then maybe for the next show, because they're so busy, and they, you know, their body has to heal, they're human beings. And so you're trying to create the most realistic kind of idea with people, so that when you create your action scene or your movie that has action in it, that it's believable to some degree, you know, so that you're looking at it, oh my gosh, that must have hurt, you know, and but the performers walk away and they got a couple bruises because you work them through it properly to get them over the psychological obstacle of this could really hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
So they go in 100% committed, and it looks like a wreck, like for instance, any of those stair falls, the 2-man stair fall in one in the chamber.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody do this. And so how did we get these guys to do this who are brand new? They've never done anything like this before in their life. You know, it's because of the prep, which us also I got from the mentality of Chad Stahelski. It's all about the prep. You know, and I really respect this guy's wisdom when it comes to just his thought process. It's pretty incredible. Dave Leach as well. They're very different, but it's the process of how they get people from this level to this level, you know, and so prepping them mentally to be able to just understand how that's going to work, allow them to commit 100% to it, which gave it that holy shit moment, you know. Oh cow, when you watch it, like, how the heck did they do that, you know, without like, I don't, you know, where's the pads, she's wearing underwear, you know, all this kind of stuff. And so you have to think, how do you get that believable action out of your performers? Because from my experience, and I can say even myself, you know, we're always, because I'm a martial artist, I'm trying to make everything look really sharp and crisp and this and that, all that kind of stuff. But in reality, fighting isn't even like that. You know, I can know a gazillion techniques, and you know, I'm not going to lie, I've, you know, been in a few things here and there, and it doesn't come out crisp and sharp all the time. It's not like I'm doing inside blocks or proper techniques or whatever that is that I do. There's always these hidden things that pop in where you just aren't prepared for, right? And and so I think of that. the best I can. When I'm doing it by myself, I try to think of everything, which is challenging. If I have my team, if I have an actual team that can help share the thought process, then maybe I could pull it off even more, even better. Right? Because like on one of the chamber, it was really me trying to think of every moment, shots, how is this going to look editing and blah, blah, blah. So then you're losing things because now I can't focus on one thing at a time. I'm focusing on the bigger picture to get it all done because of our little window of opportunity.
You're also directing it, right?
Yeah.
So it comes with the territory, I guess.
Yeah, but you know, like on a real set, well, like a set that's got a crew, the director sits there while the DOP does everything and does a lot of things while the crew is lighting stuff and doing this and doing that. And their team of stunt performers already knows how things are going to be executed. And you have a stunt coordinator who's executing stuff. But me, I was kind of wearing a lot of hats.
I was wondering to ask you about that. Do you think that's a positive thing that like a direct, especially in action? I don't like many other, no disrespect to other genres, but we're talking about action here. So in action, like uninvolved director, is that a good thing, or is it better to just let the people do their thing and to create this vision and then things like, okay, let's do this, and then start the cutting, corner cutting starts? Or is it better for a hands-on director, especially if a director that understands action or understands what it takes, or like a technical director? Because I think,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just asking, like, because there aren't, like, the more technical the director is, the easier for him to bring things to fruition, I guess, on screen. And that's what I'm asking. What is it better from your experience to work with a director that is very hands-on, or is it better to work with somebody that is letting things go, especially in action?
I'm 100% hands-on. And because then you show up, you know, I've had experiences with both, obviously. And before 300, before I met Chad and all these guys who are amazing, I've had experiences with both types of directors and just other shows and projects I've worked on. And the ones that are involved and hands-on and love what you do, it's like, it's just so easy. When you're with the ones that could care less, it's difficult because then you show up, you're like, here's the plan. You show up to set with the plan that they were in, you're all in production meetings and they're in their director world wearing the director hat, and you in your department is to create the plan. And here's the plan, the video plan. We've created the plan for you. Did you look at it? You know, are we showing up to set prepared because you looked at what the plan was that you asked for? Or are you just showing up unprepared and then you're going to like chop everything up and go in a completely different direction, slowing the process down? Right. And yeah, and so that's what I love the director to prepare. Like on a simple show, like I worked with this one director. I show up to set because it was a conceptualizing day. So I went into the set, which is a beautiful set, and I see this guy, I didn't meet him yet, with a girl, I guess an assistant, and he's just got a stills camera, and he's like, the girl's in like all these positions, and he's taking a picture and on the set, and you know, like she's like this, take a picture, and over here, take another picture, and he's basically storyboarding his scenes with his assistant. And I go, hey man, how you doing? I'm so-and-so. And he goes, yeah, I'm the director for the next episode. He goes, I'd like to talk to you when you're free. And so I went up to the guy's office and he's like, hey man, he's like, do you want to get something to eat? We'll just go to my office and we'll talk. And he was just so prepared, man, so prepared. So when I showed up to set with his vision, because he goes, this is what I would like. Here's the storyboard. And then I put my twist on it. And he's like blown away. Was the best, not necessarily, but he was blown away with the preparedness of it. He shows up to set with his vision that I collaborated with him on way before he even went to camera. And it's just like boom, 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 plug and play, done. You know, I show up to set with another director who we have a production meeting with, and they want what they want, and we discuss it. And we're I'm very particular. I almost ask so many questions that they just, would you just shut up already? You know, do you not get it? I ask sometimes I think silly questions, but for me, it's how I process what your vision might be, right? So I'd ask questions, we get the idea, we put together the idea, show up to set, the idea, again, scrapped, and now it's an uphill battle. Struggle, and you're on set with your crew, and you're trying to keep this peace, but it's now become an uphill battle. And
so I have a question. Like, it kind of goes back to what you said earlier about like in Hong Kong cinema, everybody can do everything.
Yeah.
And here, many people have an idea, but like it's less like that understanding of everything, that like if I explain to you something that has nothing to do with your department, you'll be able to compartmentalize it in relation to other departments. And then what you'll give me, it's not just from what I see from my department, but in relations to the props, to the VFX if necessary, to the editing, to the camera, where it's going to be moving. And I think that's something that is almost key, especially in action, because you have so many moving particles, so many unexpected things. That's why you ask so many questions, because you need to know. The more you know, the less you can. It's like it's a Picasso thing. Learn it like a pro, break it like an artist. But that's something that you've seen. Like, let's say like the new generation of action makers that come from the stunt world. I think I would assume that they're doing that. Is that something that you see happening more and more, that people understand the necessity to surround themselves with people that understand not just their department, but the entire filmmaking process, to actually progress faster, progress in as you said, the person was prepared. So like it's something like that's, for me, actually, I'm curious about that too, not necessarily only on the action part, because it's key to find the right people to create a good movie, but to create something great, you need to find the most, like, it's almost like a mind hive thing. The people that you can tell them, this is what I want, that they can see what you mean, both in this department and that department. And again, from your experience in the action, like you saw the Hong Kong way to make it, because you're the Western way to make it. And what would be the things that, because I saw, so like, I know I'm elongating this question, because I saw those things in One in the Chamber, for example, that it did had a lot of elements of the camera was not filming, the camera was telling a story, it was moving with the action. That stair scene that you said, the camera wasn't just standing there, there was a little movement with it that amplified the whole thing and made it look not just a stunt, but something that tells a story for a viewer. And I think that's very like Hong Kong, that's very like old school 80s, 90s Hong Kong type of filmmaking, and not necessarily Western type of filmmaking. And that's something I'm in the search for with this festival, with these conversations, to understand from like your experience. Is this something that, again, to ask the question, is this something that you've seen lacking in here? In Canada, in the States?
When it comes to on-set stuff, the collaboration, yes. North America, I'd say yes. Our mentality isn't really that way, you know what I'm saying? It's very individual. We don't work like a hive. You know, in Asia, it's a very hive-like sort of a mentality, at least from my perspective and my perception. When I was there and I was training in different martial arts for like a month, you know, it's just like that. You know, we all move together, you know, and it's just the way they think. And here it's all about, it's me, it's me, it's me. And I have my team, but I'm in charge. And, you know, everyone's trying to gun for that position. So it makes it difficult sometimes to work collaboratively, because everyone's trying to be the one that stands out. When you, and again, you know, when I reference some of the good teams that I've been associated with, they choose the A-team guys, like really A-team guys. And it becomes a collaborative effort. It's not, I'm in charge and everything, you just listen to everything I say. It's, we're working together. And I'll give an example. And again, my perception, I was never 100% involved, but the way I saw the end result was, and maybe, and I could be corrected, but when I think of certain movies, like again, John Wick or 300 again, like I always reference that movie. That was like the best one I ever worked on in my life, just because of the experience of the people, the talent, the collaboration. And that goes back to the director, his entourage, his DOP, and the closest people that were to him were all training with us. They'd come in and they do all the crazy stuff that we would do physically, not the sword stuff, but they do all the conditioning. Everything that we did, they pretty much did. And then they would leave and go do their thing. They were on the floor with us with the camera, you know, going through all the action sequences when they had the time available, so that when we showed up on the day, they knew exactly what they were going to see. It wasn't, we show up on the day and the coordinator goes, okay, here, and then he goes, okay, so what are we doing today, coordinator? No, he knew, because we did it together. You know, we all did it together. His main team knew with him and the coordinator and the stunt people and the actors, because we all did everything together, how everything was going to happen. And it was just like a seamless project. It was just epic. And and I guess that's kind of a Hong Kong approach in a way. And I like that. That's like team to me, right? And a good team, when you're on a good team and no one's gunning to be the coach or the boss or the head of the team, and they all just understand the mission and the goal, then it makes it so easy. You know, I could care less if I'm the coach. If I start off as a coach, cool. I'll make you the coach next time. You get to experience it. We'll all work for you and we'll listen to you. We'll work together, you know, bringing you up, because maybe your coaching style is different, you know, and your vision. Let's get your vision out. And so this is kind of my approach with these things. And what's lacking here is that, you know, I find the newer guys, the younger guys that are coming up and doing great stuff, you know, again, they kind of have the Hong Kong vibe. They come from that mindset and they formulate their little groups before they even get into stunts, and they shoot their own little action sequences, and then they become the next pot of guys that do all the cool shows, you know, and then the guys before them are now directing and producing, you know, and it kind of does this as time goes on. And that's when you start to see better stuff, because now they're working collaboratively, you know, directors are on the DOP and all these guys, when they're creating and conceiving ideas for the action sequences, let's say, and I'll specifically relate to those, not the acting, you know, they're putting in as much time with the action as they are with the acting. You know, it's as important to them with the story than it is as the acting. You know, the actors are involved, they're in there getting killed and doing all this stuff, training with the stunt people on a regular basis. They don't show up for 5 minutes and then leave and hope that their stunt double will do everything for them. You know, they're actually engaged in the process, which just makes the end product better for everybody. It makes better for the actors. They start to look epic. They start to understand. It makes better for the stunt people, because then they excuse me, they understand the acting side of it, you know, because we're not the best actors, but we now get to see it from an actor's perspective on how they might approach something. So now our next previs or the next thing we do action-wise, we now can approach it from another perspective, which is, well, when I worked with this actor, he gave me this insight. Now, when I look at the script, I'm going to approach my new concepts this way, right? And then it helps the director, and the director's involved. Like it's so seamless that way. And then you save time and you save money, right? And that's, at the end of the day, what I would think most productions would want to do is save time and money, because, you know, it costs a lot to shoot a film or a project.
It costs a lot to shoot anything.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long answer. I hope that covers.
No, it's a great answer, man. You don't long. This is like, I don't think there is a short form answer, because it's a complicated question, I don't think there is only one answer to it as well. It's a complicated question to say what would make something so good. But I mean, here's a shameless plug. That's exactly why I'm doing this, this festival, because sometimes I do feel and hear, and I from the interviews I listen and from the podcast I listen about action, about stunts, about all that, from the interactions I had with stunt people, that there is a lack of appreciation into the work that goes in. Oh yeah, well, ta 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 ta, we're good, but it's not. You end up with a movie that you'll see. I mean, everybody will know which movie I mean. I'm not going to name it, but like, you'll have 7 different cuts for somebody jumping over a fence, and you end up in something like that because you don't appreciate. Or again, at least that's what I feel. When you do something like that, you don't really appreciate the craft, and you kind of like it cheapens it. And as you said, if you do the work and if everybody is involved, everybody understands, then the perception of the actor, if the stunt person knows that, it also reflects in the stunt in the stand-up, because their reaction and their work. And if the same thing happens with the DOP, then the camera work will reflect the movement even better, and etc., etc., etc. And that's something that is very, very interesting. I don't think there's a short answer to that type of thing.
Well, going back to the movie you're referencing, I won't say what it is, but I'm sure everybody knows what it is. But anyway, I love, again, I don't ever want to get stuck in, this is how it has to be to make it exciting, because I've realized, you talk about Michael Bay and all these other different directors. At the end of the day, what we're doing is art. Everybody in this industry is an artist. And if I was to paint a man, and then you painted a man and somebody else painted a man, and this is our goal is, here's the statue, let's all paint the statue. We're all going to paint a different statue.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the same statue we're copying, but it's all going to look completely different. And you have to respect that, because that's your vision. Right? And so it may not be my vision, but I can't say that it sucks. I can't say that it's terrible, because at the end of the day, that's that artist's vision. Right? And is it my vision? No. Is it how I would do it? No. But at the end of the day, like I said, creating a project is not easy. So to get something done from point A to point B is an accomplishment in itself. And so I always look at that. I always take that into consideration, whether it be a very low budget, crappy project that, I shot on a cell phone, versus I had $500,000 to shoot, half of $1 billion to shoot some epic project. At the end of the day, you had to organize it and get it done. And it's not an easy task in itself. And so I take it all into consideration. I'm just, I guess, more understanding about a lot of things. And again, I look at the variety of the different people that create action, and there's a group of people for everything, that like everything. They might love that style and they might hate my style. And vice versa, right? So and it's just, that's what art is. Art is, I love that painting and I hate that one, even though they're both painted from the same thing. I love the way that guy painted it, but I hate the way you painted it.
I think there is one big difference in there that goes, which is there needs to be a certain level of we do live in a definition of everything is art, no matter what it is.
Sure.
But I do think there needs to be some type of definition of like what constitutes something good that is unanimous. Because somebody can paint a statue, but if you paint a statue of a person as 6 sticks in a circle, I mean, yeah, it's your representation of it. But so I do think in the same way in action, there needs to be a certain parameters, what constitutes even the bad part. It needs to be constituted in the parameters of what constitutes like something that is of quality, because whatever is quality is usually unanimously decided as quality, and not necessarily a certain section or a certain part or a certain group who would agree on it, but it's unanimous. Like most people would say Matrix is great. Most people would say the last fight in the Drunken Master 2 is one of the most epic fights. Most people would say Lord of the Rings, one of the best trilogy ever made, because they're all constituted in some type of hierarchy of quality. And if we don't have that, and we call it like again, that's more of a philosophical topic, because like the definition of art needs to have certain level of quality and not just the definition of it. So I do think that in my opinion, in my perspective, I do think it trickles down to both film and any other type of art. You cannot call everything. Well, I would say it could be bad or good art. I wouldn't say you can't call it art, but you need, like, there needs to be parameters to it.
Well, there's definitely the idea when all the planets align on a project, you can definitely see the difference from that project versus the project where the planets all exploded. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, it's all art, but yes, this one, everything just worked. The music, the timing, the acting, the casting, the this, the that, this, that. Yeah. And the stuff they did in it was epic. And like, holy shit, it was seamless from beginning to end. And that movie that was 3 hours felt like 2 minutes because it was so fast and amazing. Versus the other one where I'm like, how much more time? Oh shit, we still have 3 hours, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, definitely it's all art, and you're right. There are different, we as the majority of we as people, we can click to what we know is, wow, this was really well done, right? This was really good. Like, this was put together just perfect. And sometimes people can't even voice what that is, you know, but it just all flowed together like smooth, like butter, you know? And so I agree. And so for me, I try to think of all those elements as my projects get bigger, hopefully bigger budgets and bigger crews. And I try to think all the things, what do I like when I watch a really good project? You know, what works for me? And I work hard on trying to create that. That's my goal. My goal is to create that feeling. When people leave, they just go, holy cow, man, that was epic and just a seamless project. It just worked. When I left the movie 300, I was like, wow, that was really cool and different. It was, man, that was just amazing. Or what's another movie? You know, Ip Man, simple movie, Hong Kong style, the flow, the style, it just worked. You know, everything worked out. The music, the people, I'm trying to think of some other movies that are like that. For me, sequences even. When I watched the sequence in Logan, when the little girl is fighting all the bad guys, it just worked really well. Like it suited the moment, the story, and all those kinds of things. And I knew it was going to be cool and over the top, but it was done in a really cool way that it just worked. It wasn't just done over the top to be over the top. It made sense.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people love the movie Logan because, you know, it was natural, you know, and it just kind of worked. There were some things in there for me. I'm like, why did he have bone claws? Why didn't he have the metal ones or whatever? Like, I don't know. There was just different things in there that for me, but maybe it's just because I didn't understand everything. But for the overall vibe of it, I really liked, you know, the Joker, the latest Joker movie. The style of it was cool. It made sense. It was natural, organic. It was a totally new spin on DC stuff, which I liked because it wasn't like a cartoon. It was like looking at real life, you know, capturing this guy in real life, you know, watching his transformation into this character. The Dark Knight movie for me was a really good movie because the music, the acting, the style of it was just a seamless, like I could watch that movie forever. It's just so well done. You know, I just was, again, I don't always just judge a movie on how awesome the action is. I judge it on a lot of different things. And if the action fits into it well, I try to be open-minded to, okay, well, man, he'd probably fight that way, you know, or whatever. If it still makes sense, cool, you know, but it's just the way it all connected. You know, I liked it. It was seamless. And then the Batman for me after that with Bane didn't connect. I felt it was weird. It didn't make sense. I'm like, you know, the Batman. Yeah. So you can tell, I think, as a group that watches film, even if they don't understand it to that kind of detail, they just pick up on when it's seamless and it flows well, and they leave and they go, wow, that was really cool, man. You leave feeling good. You leave feeling like you want to be those characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I want people to leave my stuff feeling like that. Like it's like I'm trying to pull it out of them. You know, I love that. I love when.
Do you write your stories, or are you a writer? You dabble in writing.
If you want to call it writing, but
at least you can write.
Well, I remember listening to these guys talk about writing because, one, I'm not a big book reader. I can read and stuff, but I'm like, I'd rather listen to the book than read it. Because I just remember as a kid, when people would read stories to me, it allowed me to just lay back and kind of visualize. So when I buy books, I usually buy audiobooks because then I can just sit there and visualize, right? And I like that. There are certain things I read, but for the most part, I like to listen to them because it's like a story being told to me. And so writing was not the next thing I wanted to attempt, but I'm like, okay, you know what? I want so badly to try and write. And I wrote a few little things. One's about a 40-pager, which I haven't finished. And my first short film called Touched, which was like a drama thing I wrote from a dream. And it was basically about a mother that was so damaged psychologically from certain things happening in her life. She was touched by these things that she just could not escape mentally, which put her into a tailspin of just becoming insane in a way. So, you know, it touched her so much. So the title Touched was, it had to do with that. Like, it's like she's been touched by these events, by these people in her lives that are now no longer there so deeply, because she's so connected to them that when something terrible happened to them, she could never mentally escape that world of never being around them, never seeing them, never all these things. And that was like my first short film that I directed, and I didn't want it to be a stunt thing. Although I did put a stunt in there because I'm like, I got to put one stunt. It was kind of like my first test to see if I could tell that kind of a story, if it even made sense to somebody, you know. And it was really, again, another test for me to kind of get it finished, organize people, and that kind of stuff. What was the question? We were talking about something. I just veered off.
Who cares? We're weird off so many topics. It doesn't matter. But it sounds. I was asking you, do you write?
Yes, sorry.
It sounds to me that you like many other, like myself and probably many others, that we gravitate towards an archetypal story or character that moves us, and then action is not the main event, but it's a tool to tell another element of the story and of the character and its development or its usage of it. So that's something that, but no buts, actually.
Well, so to finish the question about writing, I just remember listening to these guys. I was looking for any technique to start writing something, and I'm not a writer, but I remember as a kid in grade school, we have little journals and stuff we'd write on. That'd be one of our things. Okay, you got to write a quick short story. Well, as a child, you just write. You don't think about what that story is. You make it up as you're even writing sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And as an adult, you forget these things because everything's got to be logically placed and thought out and this and that, which then stops the process. And so I remember listening to these guys talk about writing, and they said, make the first draft the vomit draft, meaning don't think about what you're writing, just start writing, don't correct it, don't go back, just write. And that, I'm like, you know what, let me try that. And I related that to being a child and watching my daughter or any kid that just kind of comes up with ideas. I'm like, we can still do that as adults, right? So then I just started writing, and I spent hours writing, and my goal was to do, I don't know, 1,000, 3,000 words a day and that kind of thing, just to see what I could do. And I never looked back at what I wrote. I didn't care if it made sense. I knew the grammar and all that stuff was way out the window. I don't even know if I put punctuation or anything like that. And I don't think if I did put punctuation, it would be in the right spot. But I just wrote, and I'm like, holy shoot, man. So then I wrote another thing and another thing. And then my first short film, Touched, I quickly wrote because I woke up and I had a dream, and I wrote it from a dream. I wanted to see if I could translate my dream.
Okay.
That was how that project came about. And I'm like, as soon as I woke up, I'm like, shoot, it was so clear. And I just wrote it down. I didn't care if it was clear. I just wrote it down really fast in the story kind of format. And then somebody helped me clean it up a bit. And that's kind of what we created. And then I realized to some degree, yes, I can write.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't look at it to be perfect. I look at it to kind of get the idea of the story across to a writer that can come in and clean it up for me as we collaborate on that idea. And yeah, and so I guess to a degree I can write, you know, to a degree. Yeah.
Hey, come on, like, no, that's why there are script editors out there, man.
Well,
Like,
that's it.
yeah, I mean, and also, and I think I don't remember where I heard it. It's way easier to chip off pieces of marble to create a statue than to add on. And it's way easier to fix a first draft than create a first. It's way easier to fix a first draft to create a first draft. So it's not about your ability to write, it's your ability to be consistent and shut in that part of the brain that constantly criticizes what's on the paper. It's like, oh no, this doesn't fit the word, and then you get into the loop of, and then you see all the grammar stuff, and you lost the role, and suddenly you got to go back into it again. There are few ways, some recognizable, some less, some more acceptable, some others. DMT sometimes really helps for certain people. Definitely, like for myself, I have a very anxious brain, so it's always criticizes. So writing is very difficult. Tell me about part 2 and 3 of you were talking about your future projects and what you want to do and how you want people to live.
Well, I don't even know 100% how they are going to be. I listen to some songs, and then the idea comes to my head, and then I start to kind of just plant the seed. I just plant the seed mentally that way. And then I verbalize it to certain people to force me to take action.
Okay.
Because it's kind of like writing, you know, you start to procrastinate, the more you talk about it to yourself, you stop yourself from doing it. Right. So I know myself, because I can get another idea and another idea, and then next thing you know, I didn't do it. And so I put the seeds out there verbally after I thought of the idea, and they won't be called One in the Chamber, but it's just the beginning. It's just it's just a title to kind of give it another level of reality. It's another part of the tree growing. And so it's really an introduction to the other parts of these other people that, like, for instance, Hannah as at the end of it, you kind of saw that she is a student under this person, because he goes, are you ready for the test? You know, so then we start to, I hope anyway, people that watch it go, oh, this was a test or a part of a test, you know, which means there's something bigger here. And so there are other characters that I want to introduce, kind of like not necessarily that way, in a completely different way. And knock on wood, we have a bigger production, because I'd really love to step it up. I'd love to have a crew of people, even if it's a small one, so that my stunt people and performers can really just focus on those things. We've already started kind of brainstorming their movements, how each one of these guys is going to be when they do their stuff, because I don't want them to be the same. I don't want any of them to be exactly the same as the last person. And I want them to be completely different. And so that in itself, takes a bit of thought process, because, well, how do you make them different, right? Because we all have 4 limbs, and we all can kind of move roughly the same. So how do I capitalize on their natural abilities? And that's my goal right now, is to capitalize on the abilities of their natural abilities that they already have as just regular people and stunt performers that they are. Because they all think very different. Like, I've already thought of who are these characters, what makes them so different. And my goal is, how do I portray that? How do I show that they are that different from each other, not just physically, but also even the way they think, right? How do I capture that? I've never done that before. So I'm like, how am I going to try to show the audience that this person, that Aaron, who's smiling in front of me, has these hidden tendencies of being a psychopath, exactly, without doing eyebrows, But you watch clever directors and amazing actors, and I'm not going to say my stunt people are great actors, but when you watch clever directors and actors, somehow they can can do that without them saying, I'm a psychopath. It's in some level of subtlety, and I love that. And it's like, it's and that's an art in itself. And I want to be able to do that, because that's telling a story. And again, going back to the Clint Eastwood movies, or there's barely any dialogue, and I love lack of dialogue, because then it becomes about performance. I love clever dialogue. If I was to think clever dialogue, there's definitely a lot, but obviously a lot of Quentin Tarantino's movies have like interesting dialogue. Not always the clever dialogue. It's pretty much the same all the time. But again, it's clever to a degree, right? I like it. I don't need that kind of dialogue, but it's got to suit the moment and natural. And that's another thing I love about Clint Eastwood's projects, is because if somebody fell down in a scene that he was just filming, he'll accept the fall down in the scene. He won't go, okay, we got to do it again, because I don't want you to fall down. Falling down was the natural movement of that guy who got out and did something. He tripped and he fell, but he kept acting in the scene. He kept performing. So that's the one I want. I want that clip. When you look at one in the chamber, one of the guards comes flying through the door and he falls down. That was what really happened. That wasn't because I told him to do that, right? That's the one I liked. He did all the other ones perfect. Like, what we would visualize as perfect. Going back to an earlier thing you asked, which is, choreography is just choreography. And do you find a lot of stunt people make things so perfect that it becomes unnatural? Well, That was one of the things I tried not to do in this, was have this unnatural movement. So if you fell down, that's what I'm using. As long as you continue the scene, that's the one I like, because that's reality.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's reality. We don't move perfect. The best fighters in the world don't even move perfect. They do for a bit, and then somebody catches them off guard, or for whatever reason, they just trip. Because we're, again, human beings. Our feet aren't always in the right spot.
Yeah.
And I love that. And so that's what made even doing this project easy, because then it made it that I wasn't looking for perfection anymore. I was looking for what these guys could deliver with some coaching, because they had the lack of experience. But I was really looking for it to be organic, in the sense of, if you fell down, that's the one I loved. And if you kept performing after you fell down, that's the one I really loved. If you messed up and didn't go in the path I needed you to go, that's the one I wanted. you know, because that just made it more natural, you know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to go for with these next guys, is pull out what their movements are. And I had a good lesson taught to me from Jason Isaacs, the actor. He was in all the Harry Potters, got like a gazillion credits, this guy. And I remember doing fight choreography on this show that we were working on. And, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, this is going to make you look cool, right? And I think of stories. So I think of story most of the time. But at the same time, I'm trying to also think, I got to make these actors look cool. But he challenged me all the time. And I had to really calm myself down at times. I'm like, you know, I had to step back, because he's right. He's like, Hubert, I wouldn't do this. You know, I think I want to come at it from this way. And, you know, I love your choreography, but, you know, this is what I would do. And then he goes, you know, it's not about your choreography. It's about, and I knew this, but you forget sometimes.
Yeah.
And now I always think about it from the perspective that he kind of reminded me. Natural, related to that person. And so with these next ones and the next people doing their thing, I'm watching them closely, and I have them all fairly dialed in my head as to who they are as people in our real world, or who at least they think they are. And that's what I want to bring to these next ones. And I don't know if they're going to have epic stories behind them that tell this story, because they're going to be shorts again to a degree, which will then lead up to the bigger project. Right? It's kind of like I'm creating the world of who these guys are, and then going from there. Because again, I don't even know what the end thing is. I just know that I want to create an end thing, and we do have a bigger story written, but I've rethunk the whole project, and realized that the writer who first wrote it, who's a great writer, just didn't capture the idea of what I wanted for this, for the main person, which is Rosenberg, right? So Rosenberg, which is Elon Rosenberg, this world is created about him, and all these guys are just part of that. And so we haven't even seen Elon Rosenberg really. We just saw him at the end of the first one saying, "You ready for the test?"
Yeah.
Right. And so I thought of how I will introduce him. You know, he'll be like the last one, you know, that I introduced. He won't be the first one, right? So yeah, because I think his entrance has to be representative who I see him as a real person in our world. Because people really understood and knew who Elon was, they'd be like, "Holy shit, this guy." This guy is an interesting guy.
He is a very interesting guy.
But he's balls to the wall, this guy. He does not give up. His heart's always in the right place, but tough as nails, man. Like tough as friggin' nails, you know, like and rough around the edges, but cares. It's such a contrast. It's like one extreme and the other extreme. There's no middle ground.
Usually the roughest people are the biggest teddy bears. So that's how it is usually.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see it, man. Like I'm honestly, Hubert, that was like it was great to show it at our festival. It was great to watch it. It was great to have a conversation with you about it.
Thank you.
Before we showed it and after, and this is like I think it's very exciting because, especially up here in Canada, the States is a bit different in the whole approach and perspective in filmmaking. But up here, I think there needs to be more voices such as yours to, you know, to capture not only the story but the physicality of it and use it as another tool to tell the story. So I personally cannot wait to show it, and I cannot wait to show it on our next festival. And is there where can they watch the one in the chamber?
Well, I think it's still in film festivals. The YouTube channel Chimera X CHIMERAX.
Mhm.
It's there. I don't know if it's public right now. It might be, but it was in some festivals still. And I think the rules are, can't be public just in case before a film festival. So it could be there. Feel free to check it out. I don't know because I don't manage the channel, but it might be there. I know the trailer is there, but again, I don't know if it's public yet fully. Yeah.
And if anything, how they can get a hold of you?
They never can. I'm like a ninja.
All right.
I just know. I guess anybody can get hold of me through email. Yeah, it would be hubertboorder@gmail.com. Keep it really simple. It's my first and last name. Yeah, HUBERTBOORDER@gmail.com. Yeah.
Hubert, I think we can continue this conversation for 3 more hours.
Well, as you can see, I can talk a lot.
Yeah, I can listen way better than I used to. But this has been a pleasure, man. And I bet we'll have more conversation in the future. And I cannot wait to watch whatever else you create next, because if One on a Chamber is an indication of what you can do with low budget, then I cannot wait to see what you'll do with proper budget and a proper.
It was a very low budget, and incredibly low budget. No crew except for the team, one DOP, a few lights, and just clever, figuring it out. And, that flashes back really quick to the Hong Kong way. It's they just make stuff work, and that's I love that approach to pretty much life. There's a problem, let's figure out how to make it work, and with the right people, you can do that. So that's kind of what happened there. And like you, I can't wait to have an actual budget and a team of people that could do that stuff, and we just dial it in and just hopefully deliver something pretty cool. Yeah,
I cannot wait. Well, hopefully next year, right?
To release something. The goal is to try and film. This is a big goal. Is to try and at least get 3 of them done before the end of the year.
I'm rooting for you, man.
Yeah, I like to set the standards high and see what we can do. And I believe, again, with the right people, you can do it. Yeah,
I can't wait.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, man. I know that you're busy. So,
and I love the Crank logo, man. It's really cool. It looks amazing. Yeah, it looks so cool.
Yeah, nobody would have guessed who designed it.
Who designed it?
I just.
What? Man, I want a hat or a T-shirt that says that on it.
You'll get it. Cool. You'll get it. We're actually making T-shirts, so you'll be the first one to get it.
Amazing. Yeah. I like extra small because it makes me look bigger. Just kidding.